Is your inner voice serving you and taking you on this great journey of amazement and enthusiasm and excitement for life? Or is your inner voice dragging you down into heaviness or depression or upset or anxiety? Have the guts to be extraordinary. Friends, it's Diane here at Someone Gets Me, and today we're talking about being extraordinary as a gifted and neurodivergent person. We all have amazing talents and amazing combinations of intense sensitivities and unbelievable ways of processing the world. And I believe, this is Diane's belief, that all of these amazing, great neurodivergent gifts that are within each of us are meant to come together, kind of like a perfect jigsaw puzzle, in order to help elevate humanity and bring more love and peace and kindness into the world, and to help all of us grow and transform. I also believe that we are always learning, that there is no finish line. And so when you, the gifted neurodivergent person, thinks, well, I'll do this much work or I'll do this thing and then I'll be done, which I used to do, we realize that that's just tangible human kind of things like I'll finish this project. But when it comes to our own personal development, our own personal transformation, the answering that call and yearning within us, we're never done. It's always morphing and changing and growing and evolving because, after all, the universe is always expanding. We are always expanding in unity, in diversity, and in complexity. And so, because of that, I think that our real way of being extraordinary is kind of like living on the edge, right? It's kind of being that outlier. It's that person who's willing to stand up and maybe look a little bit different or act a little different or have different humor that is actually the catalyst and the hope agent, if you will, to bringing all of the people around them and then collectively all of humanity into a more loving, peaceful, kind, good place. All those words, you know. So the real power comes from living on the edge. It does. I live on the edge. And I remember back in the 80s, which seems like a long time ago, I had a spiritual mentor. Now, I did not know he was a spiritual mentor. He was the medical director of a treatment center I was working in, and I really resonated with him. An amazing, amazing man. And one time I was going on a vacation, and he said, well, when you're on this vacation, go to a place where you're in nature and it's quiet or all around you and just sit still. And then ask what is yours to do. Well, that sounded really easy. And I was thinking, what's mine to do? Run the next group or teach this or do that. I really did not have the awareness back then that there was something much more profound that was about to happen. But because I believe in following directions and because I really respected this person that I didn't yet call my spiritual mentor, I did it. So on the way back, I had driven from Florida to Washington, D.C. to visit a friend of mine. And on the way back, I took part of the Blue Ridge Parkway. And that was kind of sentimental to me because when I was a young child, my mom taught us all about the Blue Ridge Parkway and the Blue Ridge Mountains and why that parkway was built. And so I had this sense of sentiment. So I decided to take that road for a part of the journey. So I did. And it was chilly. And at that time of year, I believe it was late fall. And I stopped at the side of the road where it said there was a waterfall hike because I love waterfalls. And so I walked to the waterfall. And it wasn't very far. It was an easy hike. I'm not a hiker, but I like the woods and I like walking in the woods. So I get to the waterfall. I'm sitting there and I'm remembering what this man said, what is mine to do? What is mine to do? And so I got really quiet and all you could hear was the waterfall and the birds and the wind in the trees. There was no human, no traffic, no nothing. I had a friend with me who was, agreeing to be very quiet and still while I did this. So I sat there for a while and said, what is mine to do? And I asked that question kind of with my eyes closed, listening. And quite frankly, not a whole lot came through. It wasn't like, oh, I had an epiphany or anything. It was not like that. But I know that I felt really calm when I asked that question. And I know that at one point when it was time for me to leave, I kind of knew it intuitively. And we left. And my friend said, well, what message did you get? Very skeptical. I said, nothing yet, but that doesn't mean anything. And I don't really know what I was supposed to get. So I'm just going with honoring the suggestion. And so we drive back to Florida and everything's fine. And not a whole lot really happened. But what I did notice about me when I returned to work was that I was a little bit more living on the edge, that I was much more aligned with what I know to be true and right and good for helping people. I was more willing to stand up for what I believe in rather than following a corporate culture that wasn't so supportive, not only of staff, but of patients and those kinds of things. I noticed that shift in me a little bit. And I had a conversation with my friend who was the medical director there. And we talked for a while. And he said, just keep holding on to that and see what happens. Well, a lot of things happened. I was offered a job that almost tripled my salary somewhere else, and all these other things kept unfolding the more I said yes to following my inner desire. Now, my inner desire has always been to help uplift humanity and be that voice and that person for somebody, whatever that meant, right? And whether it was therapy or being a good friend, because when I was in high school, it was very traumatic in my household and very chaotic. It was not good at all. The outside looked great. The inside was a war zone. And I remember suicide crisis lines were just coming into existence at the time. And I called one of them because I was really having a hard night. They put me on hold a couple of times and then said, sorry, we can't help you, and hung up. And so I vowed in that moment that nobody who ever comes into my presence would feel dismissed and unheard ever again. Like, that's wrong. And it really plummeted me into a depression back then because I, had this belief that nobody would hear me, not even the professionals. So I learned after this message, years later, like 15 years later, that what is mine to do is inspire and educate. And those two words kept coming to mind: inspire, educate, inspire, educate. And I'm like, well, they kind of go together. And I didn't see myself as particularly inspirational at the time. But I do know that I was willing to say yes. So my real power lied in that time of me living on the edge of what I thought I could do, me living on the edge of the boundaries I had for myself that I didn't even know were holding me back. Because what that lesson taught me was there's much more for me to do. There's much greater things. There's more richness and depth to life when you follow your heart, when you follow your intuition, when you follow your vision. Or as I would say, and let many people say, when we follow our calling. Because we have to be willing to leave the past behind in order to do it. And so what some people do, and I have clients that do this, they try to bring their past with them, and it's kind of like a ball and chain around your ankle, right? They try to bring the past with them and then make a new future. And that's not how it works. I had to be willing to let go of all the past I could understand to let go of in order to be able to embrace what was happening in the new part of my life. So I had to be willing to let it go. Now, the rule is, so as I've learned later, or the spiritual law is, we have to be willing to release what no longer serves us, hang out in the liminal space, and then receive what will serve us. And that's kind of where the faith is, right? Because what most of us want to do is, I'll let this go. I'll let this go the moment I see the good thing. That's not how it works. It works by us saying, I release what no longer serves me. I'm releasing the things that are in the way, and I have trust and I have faith that the right things will come into place. And that's what's happened my entire life since then. Every time I say I'm going to follow what my higher calling is in my vocation, I go after it, and I'm on point and I'm focused, and something really amazing happens, bigger than I can imagine. And yes, there have been ups and downs, lots of them. And it's always worked out in a way that's better than I can imagine. And so one of the lessons I learned, and I want you to hear this because I think this applies to many of us, is we have to be willing to leave the pack, the group, the neurotypical, the average, the common belief system. We have to be willing to leave that in the past. We have to be willing to step out into our own. And the vision I always have when I think of this is I love watching the Tour de France. And I'm not really a cyclist, but I enjoy sports and athletics. And I really love the scenery that they go through and the challenges and each day and the teamwork and all of the things that go into the Tour de France. But the first thing I notice when I watch it every time, and it so applies here, is those people in the front part of the pack that's usually 3 to 5 riders, and then there's a big break, and then there's the peloton, right? Well, those breakout people are what I'm talking about. They're living on the edge. They are going after it in a different kind of way. And so we have to be willing to do that in our life. We have to be willing to leave the pack and go out in a way that serves us in an amazing, amazing way. And that's how we live our vision. And that's how, as a neurodivergent person, we learn more and more to honor our unique learning style, our unique processing, our amazing way of doing things. And we then become more in touch with the invisible ethers all around us, like the fish swimming in the water. It's our water. It's the mystery, and it's the invisible power. Oh, I'm getting goosebumps. It's the immeasurable way that we can see how powerful and awesome the world is. And we get to be part of it. And we get to be part of creating something amazing with our unique gifts. Because each one of us has unique gifts and opportunities and callings, and because there was no conference call, it's all individual. And that's what's so fun, right? People say, well, Dianne, I'll never be like you. Well, you don't want to be like me. You want to be you, right? You don't want to be me. You want to be you. And I don't want to be you. I want to be me. And I love to honor you, though. I love to honor how you do things. I love to honor that you live on the edge and you're an outlier and a maverick. I love that you think differently than the average person. I love that your humor is something that some people can't even understand, that it takes a minute because the way you think. I really love how you collect things and notice things and synthesize ideas in new and impressive ways. I love that about you. And that's living on the edge in a culture that wants everybody to be even and the same. And so I applaud you for that. So we want to understand too that we are asked spiritually to live our own calling and not copy someone else or try to. So it's like funny because I was working in a place a long time ago, and I left there, and they, for whatever reason, wouldn't let me take all my intellectual property with me that I brought to the place. So it was mine before, whatever, right? Because when I look back at it, it's like they wouldn't know what to do with it anyway. Because you can't copy me. You can't take something that drew down for Dianne and make it yours. It doesn't work. You can try, but it doesn't work. As just like I couldn't do that for your thing. We're all meant to bring our own ideas, our own paradigms, our own functioning, everything to the world. So I am powerful in my way, and you're powerful in your way. And so when we all come together, the synergy of all of our vision and power and authenticity and authority all come together. And that's what makes the magic happen. That's how come I do my retreat. That's how come I like to do the gifted get-togethers on Zoom, where we just all get together. Because when two or more are gathered, when we all come together in person right there, there's a synergy in the energy of who we are, and our extraordinary way of living becomes evident and obvious, and it's honored. I take part in an emotional support group for musicians and people in the music industry, and there's that same synergy because there's an understanding in the way people see the world. And as a neurodivergent person, there's an understanding in the way that we see the world, and it's not the same as the pack. So we're the riders in the front, and then the peloton's there. Now they're still in the race. They're still coming along. They're not with us, and that's okay. They're not supposed to be. So there's three things that I think that are really important for us to always do. One is to listen. Listen with our mind and our ears, and listen with our heart. So we're listening to words and information and content, and we're listening to the people around us. We're listening to what they say and what they're not saying. So what's happening, what's obvious, and then what's the rest of it? And we, as neurodivergent people, have that ability. Some of us do it so automatically, we don't even really realize it's a gift, but it is a gift. So listen to what's being said and also to what's not being said. You also want to listen to your own inner voice. Is your inner voice serving you and taking you on this great journey of amazement and enthusiasm and excitement for life? Or is your inner voice dragging you down into heaviness or depression or upset or anxiety? Because your own voice helps dictate your experience of life. After all, our brain believes our own voice above all others. So it's important to listen with our heart, with our ears, to what's going on around us and what's going on inside of us. Listening to our own self-talk, to our own voice. The second thing I like to think about is the word trust. Now, trust means consistency over time. So if you're always 10 minutes late every time we have an engagement to do together, then I can trust that you'll be 10 minutes late. So people use the word trust kind of like only with, I can't trust him or I can't trust her. Well, there's more than that. It's consistency over time. So if you're always early by 10 minutes, I can trust that you will be. In fact, I have several clients that get on Zoom and they're always 10 minutes early. I can get on 15 minutes in advance, and sure enough, right at the 10 till mark, they show up because they believe in being on time. And for them, 10 minutes early is on time. I respect that. And we want to trust ourselves. We want to trust the world that we live in. We want to trust the idea that if we follow our inner extraordinary calling, that we'll be supported and cared about and cared for in ways we can't even see all the time. Because first you have to say yes to the calling, and then the support and the avenues show up, not the other way. You can't be like Missouri, the show me state, and say, I got to see it first and then I'll say yes. Not how it works. We have to be willing to say yes and open ourselves up, and then we go from there. If that makes any sense, I think it does. And then the third step is we have to be willing to act. Now, our actions include our words, our body language, whether we're breathing or not, our speech, of course, and our physical actions. And so it includes all of the human experience about whatever our calling is. So my calling, it has to do with education and inspiration. So when somebody says, hey, Diane, will you talk at this event, or you write this article, or will you, fill in the blank? What I do is I ask myself, is this opportunity going to align with my calling of inspiration and education? If it does align, if my answer is yes, then I get to say yes to the invitation, if it's something that attracts me. If it does not align, even if it's attractive to me, my answer is, I'm sure I'm not able to, but here are some resources that might get you there. Always giving that person avenues and opportunities, because my actions have to line up. And if I distract myself by doing something that's not in alignment for me, I can do that, but it takes me off course. It takes me off my edge, takes me off that part of me that is bringing something to the world that's greater than me. So we want to listen with our heart and our mind to what's being said and what's not being said. Also to our inner voice, like our epiphanies, our downloads, our inspired ideas. Or we want to have trust, right? And then after we listen, we want to trust. We want to trust the world, the universe, our own intuition, our own message. And the more we pay attention and the more we trust, the more we can discern and the more we can trust. It builds on itself. And then we want to take appropriate action, whatever that would be, to go with what we're hearing, what we're feeling, what we're sensing, and how we trust the world. We have to be willing to do that. And that doesn't mean we're going to do it perfectly, because we're not. There's going to be days we're going to mess it up. I was just telling a young man I'm working with right now, there are days you are going to nail it and everything is right on point, and you are going to think that nothing can touch you. And that's true at that moment. And then there's other days you're going to mess it up. You're going to think thoughts that you probably don't want to think, and you're going to do all these things. You're going to have a tricky day. And that's okay too. Because sometimes it's in those tricky days, it's in those difficulties, it's in those self-deceptions and that self-betrayal sometimes, where we learn our greatest lessons to elevate ourselves even more and to bring along more people with us to a greater expression of life. So all of it can be used as a way for us to come more fully into our calling. But we want to know how to do that without spiritually bypassing. We want to feel the experiences and live through them and present ourselves to the world in that way, on the edge, of course, and without bypassing it. In other words, without just staying in our head and thinking our way through without the feeling experience with it. Because, see, many people are scared to death. They are afraid to honor their instinct and their intuition and their calling. And I have people come to me and then go, I have this idea, I have this thing I want to do, but it feels so big, I can't do it. Well, what I say is, it feels so big, you have a mentor or a coach with you who helps you take off bite by bite by bite. And then pretty soon, as you grow into the person who can receive the bigger calling, you'll be ready for the calling when you get there. Of course, you're not ready for it right now because you haven't done the work to get there. But as you go down the road, you will. And so it's very important to honor your intuition, honor your instinct, honor who you are, honor what's going on so that you can then keep growing. And you want to make sure to realize that whatever you're planning, this is great. Whatever you're planning, it's not it. Whatever you think it's going to look like, that's not it. It's not it, because you can only plan and see your vision from where you're standing right now. But it's bigger than that. It's more beautiful. It's magnificent, actually. But we have to be willing to walk the road in order to shed what's no longer serving us and bring into our life what will serve us. And so we have to shed the fear, all of that, I call it static, that gets in the way of our inspired life, because living on the edge is an inspired life. That means we're following our higher calling. That means we're following the higher principles of living over staying with the pack and just doing the humdrum boredom thing that is very hard for any neurodivergent person to do. So we want to choose our inspiration over fear. You want to choose being inspired over being scared. Now, the same young man also said he was afraid of a few things. And I said to him, you're afraid of success. You keep sabotaging. Self-sabotage comes from the fear of success. The fear of success comes because we have a belief system, known or unknown to us, that something about being successful has a quality we don't want. And a lot of people say, yeah, if I get real successful, I'll have to be more responsible. If I'm successful, I'll have to fill in the blank. And they don't want to do that. And so therefore, they sabotage their own success. Sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a blend. But the point is, if we're going to live an inspired life, we have to understand there's like a whole range, right? There's a range from the sweetness and beauty of intuition and living in the flow and allowing ourselves to just go with the creative juices of us. And then the other side is reason, always in our mind, intellect, Excel spreadsheet, line item list, right? We have both sides. And so we each get to say, okay, how is this going to play with me? How am I going to use the understanding that I could be at either extreme or any blend in the middle? And which of those places works for me today? Now, the cool thing is we change over time. My calling of inspiration and education has changed over time. It has changed from working with teachers in classrooms to teaching my own things, to running groups, to running treatment centers, to doing ministry and studying theology. All of it has all come through me and more. And so now my expression of inspiration and education is all about supporting neurodivergent people and gifted people to come into their own, to live on their own edge, because I believe that those of us that have that deep heart's desire to do something good for the world, that we're the ones called to help create a better world. So we have to say yes. So many people don't say yes. So many people say no because they don't know what to do. Well, I made that decision in the 80s to say yes. And one of the things I say is I say yes, no matter what my human self says. I'm going to do what my instinct and my intuition, my connection says to do. That's how I started Visions Applied. That's how this podcast, Someone Gets Me, got started. It was an idea from someone else, said, you should do a podcast. I'm like, really? And they're like, oh, yes, you should do a podcast. This was in 2017. And every week since then, a new show has come out. Every week. Because I know that it's important. It wasn't on my radar till it was suggested. I tried it on. I listened. I paid attention. I trusted that there was a reason. And then I took an action. Because I know that if it wasn't meant for me to do, as I was taking the action, it would fall away, or I would see, no, that was a bad idea. But that's not what happened. What happened was, in the first 21 days of this show being live, it was in 21 countries. And I didn't advertise anything, and I wasn't even ever trying to advertise or monetize. I just want to support people and educate and inspire. And it all lined up that way. So the show still goes on. Yeah. So we can follow our gut, and it can look like something we never thought before. We can choose to respect our intuition and respect what our calling is, or we can choose to live in fear and hold ourselves back and have that chronic sense of dissatisfaction and misery. You get to choose the path. So what do you choose? Do you choose inspiration? Do you choose following your calling? Do you choose to use your guts to be extraordinary and live on the edge? Is it okay with you to be an outlier or somebody who lives outside of the norm in order to bring your vision to life? Is it? I know that all the people I work with, we all have these different kinds of things where we're working toward shedding the old understandings of things and growing into a new way of living. And each one of us has our own path. Each one of us has our own way that we want to do these things. Sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's hard. Everybody, out there in the world, or not everybody, but a lot of people would say, oh yes, this is amazing. I'm so transformed and everything's good. And that is the end result. Everything's great, but the road can be rocky. I've had not just dark nights of the soul. I've had dark weeks of the soul. I remember at one point feeling so broken that all I could say, even out loud, I'd wake myself up sleeping at night saying, I'm broken, there's nothing left. But then as I allowed myself to be inspired by my intuition and inspired by others, I started seeing that breaking apart was giving me the opportunity to step into my full authority of who I am. I go and I do sound healing with a very trusted sound healer and work on the vibration part so that the nonverbal things can be released so I can step more fully into my inspiration and education. So no matter how long you've been on this journey, no matter what it is, ask yourself, what am I doing today to elevate myself beyond where I was yesterday? What am I doing? What action am I taking? What am I listening to? What's happening? And give yourself permission to say yes to something that serves you. Yeah, that's how it works. It's not hard. And it can sometimes feel really dark and really light and really confusing. All of those things are normal. So I encourage you to have guts to be extraordinary, because you are extraordinary. And I really hope that if you're hearing my voice and you're still listening, that you know that you have within you something beautiful and great that you can humbly offer the world. So I encourage you to offer it to the world. I encourage you to take care of you in a way that is meaningful and powerful. And I encourage you to make sure that as you navigate this world, that you take care of you and that you honor what you know you're here to do on planet Earth, because you're not here by accident. None of us are. So I hope this episode of Someone Gets Me has served you. And as always, a get to know you call can further the discussion if you want it to. Please be sure to check out the link in the show notes for the upcoming retreat in October of 2025. And if you're listening to this after that, you missed the great time, but there'll be another one. And so we'll see what happens. Till the next episode of Someone Gets Me, This is Dianne saying, keep your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you, because you're a rock star. You're here on purpose with a mighty purpose. So go out there, be inspired, live on the edge, let yourself be you, follow your instinct. Until the next episode, be well.